did you have any concerns about it being, a real, a difficult thing for an audience to grasp, or did it feel that it was something that people could grasp?
Well, it's like, fuck it, I mean...
Hello, and welcome to The Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today we're going into more of our series in the works of.
Yep.
The last one we had was Edgar Wright. We deep dived into all his
And then
films.
we also did Kevin Smith, but this was before we had like a name for this.
A name for it, which now in name, the works of. Today we're talking about one of a young Frank's favorite filmmaker, and still up there as one of my favorite filmmakers, and I would and Teenage Frank would also say the best filmmaker alive. But it is Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Christopher Nolan. Kind of always have been. When I first found out about him, it just kind of started a love affair.
Yeah, I started with Batman Begins.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
You want to get me into anything, you got to start with Batman.
Yeah, start with Batman. But like Christopher Nolan, not only was he able to be like, here's a cool Batman film, but he was able to introduce me to so much more with his earlier films, with Following and Memento. I think that they were such strong contenders for neo-noir, and Memento is will always go down as one of the best noir films, even if it's a newer film of 2000.
I mean, that's really that term neo-noir comes from.
Yeah,
because noir wasn't really. I mean, it's a lot of things. Noir's a lot of things. It's an aesthetic, but it's also
a feel.
It's also a period in which the films were made.
Yeah,
so,
and it's also sometimes the when I say feel, it's the tension that sometimes a noir can create. But that's going on a weird tangent. But basically, Christopher Nolan, he's a British filmmaker that has always stood out for me. I guess it's funny that most of my favorite filmmakers are British. Like we did Edgar Wright before, and and now we're doing the king of the film, Christopher Nolan. Like this is other than Quentin Tarantino, there's no other guy that stands up for film like Christopher Nolan does. The man wants his movies to be seen in film. He shot it on film. He wants people to see it.
Spielberg's another one.
Spielberg's, but he's also a big proponent of pushing the medium to digital.
Exactly.
Like one of the reasons why we shoot digital now is because Spielberg and George. Like that's those guys pushed the digital medium.
Yeah.
But if we're talking guys who will literally be like, you can't show my movie unless you're showing it in 70 millimeter. It's
it's
Tarantino and Nolan,
or just like refuse to even shoot on anything but film.
And I gotta respect that. As much as it's probably a pain in the ass to everybody working on the film, gotta respect the guy respects the art. You know, he really sticks behind it and really sends it and really does it. I also think that that there's lots of things that really stand out about Nolan that make him unique. And
he definitely has a type.
Yes, he's definitely got a type. I think one of his strong suits is his use of structure in film. May that be Memento, where he's shuffling it around. May it be Insomnia, where you don't really know who knows the plot. You know, like Prestige, where there's some time flips.
And it's like two separate point of views. Or you get to Inception, where it's just like most of the film is actually just setting up what is essentially a big heist, but it has to explain the rules.
Yep, and then Interstellar, where it completely messes with time. Like
Dunkirk as well, trying to condense time and play with time, even in its
but I wouldn't say
score.
Time. So time's important, but it's also about the structure.
Yeah.
You know, because he's moving time around and playing things that happened in the past at different points and stuff like that. But it's really about taking that 3-act structure that is normal in most movies you watch and just going, fuck that, and shooting it in the leg. Yeah, because he just does something completely different.
He approaches his films, his projects, like a puzzle. And it's evident in his entire filmography, even to the point where the name of his studio Sync could be. Yeah. You look at the logo, it's a maze.
Yeah, it's a maze.
It opens up as a maze and then you see the letters. That's his mentality.
Yeah.
Everything is like a puzzle to solve.
And that's what I think really you can feel this like togetherness on a lot of his films. Like he's thought, I think that's when I'm saying structure and time he's playing with, that also means he's gone through this story a lot. And it shows in these movies. I feel like we're not I think we may have said it earlier, there's not a bad film on this list, you know? Like there's no film on this list that we're going to be like, this one's bad. Like there's some films we may not like as much, but these are not bad movies. None of them are. And they're all, some of them are some of the best movies ever made, you know, like, and that's why, according to me, but these, Nolan continues to show that not only is he a modern master of structure, but he is also a modern master of taking big budget movies and able to put a little bit of humanity in.
Yeah, he seems to be like a master of like a thriller. Like he tends to aim towards like thrillers, but with some degree of poignance.
Yeah. I feel like if there's one common thing that Nolan films do is they feel like they move. They feel like almost from the get-go, like something's happening and you're along for the ride. And that's very apparent in his very first film, Following, because it is basically you being like, okay, I'm going to follow this, the main character is following somebody around, and you're basically on the ride for this guy following him around. And same thing for Memento. Like the thing starts and you're just kind of like, well, now I'm on this mystery, you know, like, and we got to figure out.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones where you have to just like stick with it because you're going to be confused to start, because that's sort of the point. The idea that it sort of plays the outcome of every scenario, then you get to the lead up afterward. Yeah. It's sort of like the pattern. So you're like, okay, so this is how that connects to it, and everything comes together.
I would say the only movie where he plays it almost completely straight is Batman Begins. It's the only one where he doesn't mess with time too much. He messes with it a tiny bit. Like there's little moments of like, oh, that's happening in the past. But like in most overall story progression wise, it's the only one where he doesn't mess with time.
Yeah, I mean, it was his like biggest studio film at the time, and it was a superhero origin story.
Yeah, and it's very standardly doing a hero story, you know, like, but it does do a lot of great things here. And it's, but we won't jump into the Batman films exactly, but yet, because we will talk about it. But Nolan, it's funny because it went from being a thing he just did, where it was like, oh, Nolan's doing a down-to-earth film, you know, like to be like, and that goes for pretty much everything before Batman Begins. Is Following is just on the streets. Memento is like in a warehouse.
Yeah, more like at a hotel. Yeah. At a hotel, basically in like this pretty small like neighborhood.
Yeah, very small. Insomnia's
just like in an Alaskan town.
Yeah, in a boat. Like, and Prestige is kind of all over the place, but like is very down to earth. Yeah. You know, like it sure is doing magic, but it is still telling a grounded, like, how did he do the magic story? Yeah. Which I think it wasn't realized that's how down to earth Nolan was until he went into the Batman movies. But obviously it was there beforehand.
Yeah, it's been present like in his style and in the way he executes.
And now it's kind of a thing. Medium. We always say Nolan-verse because when it's something gritty or down to earth or very like you could
earnest.
See the thought process. Yeah, you know, like it's you would even say Batman Year One was Nolan-versy in the way that it was like very like Batman gets hit and he hits hard.
Yeah, it's very street level.
Very street level, and that's what I think he brings to all the films after that. Is he's bringing a street level, a humanity, a realness to a lot of these stories. Interstellar, it's a fucking crossing the galaxy story, but somehow it's still about him and his daughter.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like Dunkirk is the biggest evacuation in human history other than 9/11, boat history, and Dunkirk still, he's able to keep it just about boys trying to get home.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm
It's
almost
just it's just like laser focused.
laser focused. I'm excited for Tenet. We'll talk more about that later in the podcast, but it's another one where, sure, we're doing time travel, but it's like two time cops, sort of. I don't understand because you've seen the preview.
I did see the IMAX prologue. Yeah, I think when I went to go see King of the Monsters.
Yes.
And yeah, it doesn't really give much of an indication as to what the actual plot is. And he seems to be really playing that close to the chest.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's some espionage stuff.
It seems like it's
involving like not so much time travel, but like time manipulation as a device.
This hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, this hasn't happened. Because the scene that everyone remembers that's been shown in the trailers a bunch is like the car reversing.
Yeah, reversing its
resetting itself.
Yeah, and he's now become the king of time manipulation. Like that, definitely. If you're going into a Nolan film, it's going to be something messed up about time, and I think it's quite interesting that that's become his kind of trademark. And Tenet almost, it's like if Inception leaned into the time movement. Yeah, Tenet seems to even lean harder into like the time movement thing. So let's just go through these all. Unless you have something else you want to say, just kind of like in basic of Nolan.
Rather get like really bite into the films individually.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go through this list. Before we do that though, one of the things I've always loved about Nolan, and this might be a personal thing, is he's a film school boy. Mm-hmm. He went to film school. He made his movies. He came out of film school with following, and then he's made his career ever since. I love that. I fucking love that. It's one of those things that doesn't happen to most of us.
It's the dream.
So it's the dream, and Following is a fantastic first film. For a movie that's coming out of college, it's kind of sophisticated in a way. It's down, it's dirty, it's black and white,
and there are elements in that would begin to carry over into his other films.
Yes,
like it's about crime. He's following a criminal. The criminal's name is actually uses the alias Cobb, which he would later bring back for Cobb in Inception.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's true. And it's funny, I'm reading here that they took over a year to film the movie because everyone had full-time jobs, and he would get footage of people in like 15-minute spurts, which you're just like, isn't that the most film school way to film?
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
And I really do. I think this movie, it's funny because it's called Following, but it makes you want to follow Christopher Nolan afterward because you're like, that was great, you know, like for a feature film, like you said, he deals with heists and crime and thrillers. And this is thriller distilled down to its very core. You know, like it is strictly tense moments. It is strictly just walking around trying to follow this target.
And plus it even gets like meta in and of itself at the fact that like the main character is a writer. And it's all about becoming lost in a particular world, which people have made that like distinction before, that when you look at Nolan's films, a lot of its plot is sort of a meta commentary on the film itself.
On the film itself.
Like especially Inception.
Yeah, it's true.
Like the entire movie is predicated on the idea of planting an idea, of pulling this off. Almost like trying to execute this properly for an audience.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, what? This is super meta. But Following, if you haven't seen it, it's funny because this was, you were saying we got into Nolan, Batman Begins. I was in high school. I saw Batman Begins, and I immediately went to the library and rented Following and Memento. Yeah. That's back when that was totally normal to go to a library and get these DVDs from them. They had a whole giant DVD section. I know that's not
so.
I know they still do it,
yeah.
but I just it was back when there was Blockbusters, and you were like, I was like, yeah, but I could get this for free at my library, and then not give it back for a while, and that's what I did. I watched Following right away when I brought it home, but Memento I watched again and again. Following's good. Following's good,
Yeah.
but it's rough. It's a student project.
It's a student film, yeah.
And it's not bad, but like if we're looking at Steven Spielberg's first films, if you're looking at Edgar Wright's first films, this is a step above.
Yeah,
even those.
There's a sense of polish that's
Five Finger
missing
Death
from
Punch
others, yeah.
and this are different. Like they're different beasts, you know. Like
I mean, Criterion released Following on home media.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Like
It still plays.
It's rough.
It's in the same way that like it's rough around the edges, given its limitations, but it still plays beyond just those trappings of like a student film. In the same way that you could argue Clerks does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Following gives you very much Clerks vibes, not only because it's shot in black and white, but because of the roughness but completeness of the project.
Yeah.
You know, like it feels done even though it is rough. You know, like it feels very thought out but rough.
Yeah.
Next up is The Breakout. Is what put Nolan on the map. Like Following was big and it did well on the festival circuit, but Memento is where everyone went, oh wait, hold on, who's that fucking dude? You know, like is everyone literally changed their mind here. This is we were saying it earlier, it's noirish as hell. I'm a big noir fan. I was always into noir films as a kid growing up. I love the tenseness of the noir genre and all their tropes.
Mm-hmm.
I love that you can't trust anybody. You can't trust the narrator. You can't trust the femme fatales. Like it's just it's a fun way to play with film as a genre. Yes. And film noir usually plays with it. Even Maltese Falcon feels
and
like
it's
that.
beyond its own gimmick, because it would be easy to say just like, well, what if I did like a noirish mystery film but with a character who can't remember anything?
Yeah.
Just like that'd be easy. That's like an easy premise on its own just to think of.
Yeah.
As far as execution though, that's a whole other story.
Exactly.
Because you could have still made a film where that's at the forefront but still have it told linearly, but they decided to go the extra mile and actually tell it out of sequence.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who see Memento and they're like, it's just confusing. And this is the start. Okay, let's get this out of the way.
Here we go. I know where you're going.
Out of the fucking way. If you are confused by any of these films, any of them, if you were like, Inception, it was kind of confusing, I didn't know what's going on, you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Not sorry. You're a fucking idiot. Like, it's not that fucking hard. None of these movies are. None of these fucking stretch the mind too fucking far. Like, sure, they may mess with the structure a tiny bit, but just pick up on visual cues a tiny bit.
I remember Inception back in film school. It used to be like your fucking litmus test, where it was just like, if you don't get Inception, we can't be friends.
We can't talk.
We can't talk. I can't have a conversation with you.
There's a difference though between seeing Inception or Memento and not liking it, and then seeing it and not getting it. If you don't fucking get it, if you don't understand what happened, get off my fucking podcast. Stop listening.
It's just really a matter of just being attentive.
Yes.
If you shut your damn mouth and actually pay attention.
So Nolan, one of the things I always love about Nolan, and one of the things we always ask for in filmmakers, is that they don't hand us everything. If they're not just like, here you go, here's the entire plot, it won't hurt you, don't worry. It's like, I don't need to be told and held my hand through every cinema piece.
Yeah.
Like, what I love about Nolan is he trusts the audience. Trusts the audience to just understand. And that is first off hard and scary, and I'm sure for the producers and everything in the higher up command, they don't love that.
Yeah.
It's the reason why they made him do Batman Begins very straight, it very, very much. And Dark Knight is very straight.
And it's weird because you can even say that he doesn't try to like speak down to the audience, but he doesn't shy away from like being really clear and instructional.
Yeah,
that's like one of the criticisms levied at like the Dark Knight. It was like Alfred's speeches. Like, he only tends to speak in, like, expositions. Like, this is the theme of the movie, Master Wayne. This is what we're going for thematically, Master Wayne.
True enough.
Yeah, and it's not wrong, but it's just one of those things where the entire, like, first 2 fucking acts of Inception are built around setting up how this works. These are the rules. This is what we're going to do. Beat by beat. This is what's going to happen.
See, that's the part that makes me angry. Is that
like
not
most
that
of that
they
movie is
missed,
exposition. It's beautifully done, but that's what it is.
But that's it. That's the problem. Is not that they saw the movie and they didn't understand it. It's that they saw the movie, and what makes me angry is that they didn't keep up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, because it's not moving too fast.
No, it's really not.
moving fast, but it's not moving like, oh shit, man, what the fuck is going on? You know, like, definitely not. And I've seen some movies that move fucking fast, and none of Nolan movies move fast enough for you to be like, I don't know what's going on. Like, none of them do. Even Interstellar, at its most meta, does not lose its core audience.
All you have to do is just pay attention.
Just pay attention. If you're going to see a movie, pay attention to the movie. I know, there's a pretty girl sitting next to you. It's hard to pay attention. You shouldn't have gone to see fucking Interstellar, you asshole. Take your date to Inception. Good fucking idea, you idiot. Like,
I did. But I didn't go with someone stupid.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to go with somebody who just didn't get it. But Memento is the first inkling of this real playing with time, and I think, and he kind of nails it right out of the park. Like, I as much as I love Inception and Interstellar, and they're playing with time, and Dunkirk, they all beautifully play with time. Memento nails it. Yeah, right off the bat. It's a little bit. It keeps you off kilter a little bit. It makes you really pay attention. It's a great way to make you sit up and go, this is not a normal movie. Pay attention. Yeah. And I think Nolan does that best. He is like, I talked about him not insulting the audience, but that's really it. He trusts the audience, and he kind of gives them what they want most of the time, but not what they may want. They may be saying, you know, like, is basically it.
And given the writing of the film, because this was like a co-project writing-wise with him and Jonathan Nolan, his brother, who tends to collaborate with him a lot, even if he doesn't get the credit for it or not. And Memento was an interesting one because when they were first drafting it out and they were almost ready for it to start shooting, they said there was like a piece of it missing that they didn't know what it was. Something to like really anchor the main character in something sympathetic, or something that was played a little straight, to the point where even if you weren't quite following the structure of the rest of the film as it was told out of order, there was one little piece of it that you could just follow straight on, which is the Sammy Jenkins stuff.
Nice.
They pretty much added that like Sammy Jenkins little thing to be like a through line for people who were like having trouble catching it. So again, it just goes back to the point, just like you're given everything you need.
Everything you need. Seriously. What cracks me up about Memento is that even the studio didn't fully get the appeal of it being all in different order. Because they're on the limited edition DVD, it allows you to watch the movie in chronological order.
Fuck off.
Isn't that fucking wild? Like, if you really wanted to fuck this movie up in like, you know how they make the joke, like, watching it the way Christopher Nolan intended? That's the least way Christopher Nolan intended it. Like,
I call that the game journalist cut.
Right? You're just like, who the fuck wanted this shit? Like, you know, like, it just doesn't it's like it's a funny DVD feature, but it makes you go like, who the fuck did
That
this?
would be kind of interesting to watch, just to be like, how much of the magic have you robbed from this movie?
Robbed from this movie. What's interesting about Memento is it's only the second feature film by Christopher Nolan, but if you look on IMDb, this is his top ranked movie.
It tends to be the favorite.
This is his favorite. This is on IMDb right now. It's on number 55 in top 250 movies of all time. That's crazy. 55?
Yeah.
That's crazy. But it is that good. It is that
really
good.
is.
It is that good. It's really good. I remember watching it as a kid, being blown away, watching it much older, and being like, shit, this movie's damn good. Like, it's just... It's
just fascinating, and it's also just
Guy Pearce.
Gary Pearce is great.
He's great.
Yeah,
he's good. Like I'm a Guy Pearce fan pretty often. Like he's great in pretty much everything.
I remember in like early days when they were still like making the first Daredevil movie, like that was one of the people they were considering for Matt Murdock, and I was just like, shit, a young Guy Pearce is Matt Murdock.
Yeah, right.
That'd be pretty good.
Good work.
Yeah,
good work. And now they just misuse Guy Pearce everywhere. But he's a damn good actor.
Yeah.
He's a damn good actor. Iron Man 3.
Prometheus.
Yeah, Prometheus. Stop misusing Guy Pearce. Let him be. Now, this next movie on the list is the movie I would say is maybe Christopher Nolan's weakest.
I would say that, yeah.
And that's not saying this movie's bad, but it's just not what everything else is. Insomnia, 2002's Insomnia. Now, this is this is the first one that Guy Pearce is a big name, but fucking Robin Williams and Al Pacino in one movie is kind of
it's
wild.
Such a weird pairing.
Such
for stars,
a weird
too.
pairing, like extremely strange. Hilary Swank's also in this.
Yeah,
this is quite. It's quite the cast here. Insomnia's good though. It is good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not as driving / interesting.
I think part of it is that like it's not an idea wholly original from him because it is a remake of a Norwegian film.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
I think that holds him back a little.
Yeah.
And
not only that, but it also feels like a very safe movie compared to Memento.
Yeah.
It's almost just like, oh, you did pretty well with Memento, but we sort of have like this other
one
crime
that's
thriller
about memory.
Can't you make another movie like this?
Yeah. Which, to be fair, for the producers, that makes sense. You're like, hey, we had this noir thing. Here's another literal noir film.
It reminds me of, I don't know if you ever saw Hitchcock with Anthony Hopkins.
Anthony Hopkins in Hitchcock? Like Hitchcock Will Smith?
No, that's Hancock.
Hancock,
as
sorry.
As in Anthony Hopkins playing Alfred Hitchcock.
Thank you. Yes, I do remember
with
that now.
Him and Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
There's a line that always cracks me up because at the time, it's not really about his whole life, it's about the making of Psycho.
Yeah.
And one of the things that like harries over him is how successful North by Northwest was.
Yeah.
And all the producers being like, can't you just make another movie like North by Northwest? While he's trying to make Psycho, yeah. And he's all afraid. He's like, what if it's another Vertigo? Because Vertigo now is considered like a huge thing for him, but it did not do well when it came out. So it's just funny. It reminds me of that. It's like, can't you just do another one like these?
Yeah. And he's just like, wait. And Insomnia is good. Robin Williams is pretty darn good in it. Like this was a time when Robin Williams was trying to do some serious roles.
Yeah, he was trying to like push away from just doing solely comedic roles, and he wanted to play like darker stuff. He was really good at it. Too good, I would argue.
No,
like between something like this and like 1 Hour Photo, you're just
I was about to say, if there's a movie that like that rides next to this movie as like a creepy Robin Williams film, it's 1 Hour Photo.
Oh, yeah.
I love 1 Hour Photo. It's fucked.
Like, he's great in it.
It's like he's great in it, and it's kind of fucked. This was a very similar this was okay.
But
these were the movies he did in a row, which shows you him being like, I'm done he did all these in a row. He did Goodwill. So he did Flubber, and then he was like, okay, serious movies forever now. Goodwill Hunting, What Dreams May Come, Patch Adams, Bicentennial Man, AI, 1 Hour Photo, Death to Smoochie, Insomnia. Like, these are in Final Cut.
Man.
The Final Cut, which is not super good, but it's another one where he's trying to be very serious. These are all movies in a row where you're kind of like, shit, Robin Williams, these are serious movies.
He was really going for like serious stuff. And he's still like comedic in Good Will Hunting, but he's also playing like an alcoholic who's like distraught over the death of his wife.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey kind of had a similar thing. Not so much that he was trying to play like
but he had the number
intimidating
23.
characters, but he was going like Eternal Sunshine,
yeah.
The Majestic, The Truman Show, The Number 23. That was another where it was just like, I want to try something different.
Yeah,
like I'm more than just the funny guy.
And I love that they both did this.
Yeah.
You know, I love that Robin Williams took that step and been like, no, I can do a little bit more than that. And he shows it. This movie might not be Al Pacino and Robin Williams' best, but they are
It's
good.
An interesting premise. I do like the idea of just like the hunt for a murderer in a town up in the north where you don't get much in the way of like sleep because it's never like nighttime.
Yeah.
And so the idea of just like sleep deprived and sort of going crazy, he thinks he's on the pursuit, he accidentally shoots his partner.
Yeah.
And like has to like push that aside because the important thing is that he needs to find this killer, but he just keeps going mad with his sleep deprivation. Like, the elements are there. I could see why Nolan would be attracted to the project.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. And what's funny is I feel like they saw these two true crime ones and they were like, so we're doing like kind of a true crime down to earth Batman. You in? And he was like, sure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, sure. Because so there's one thing you need to know about Nolan that's always important in Nolan, anything. The man wants to direct a Bond film. That's it.
He always has.
That's always has. He brings it up constantly. Just give the man a Bond film. Just give it to him.
It's so weird that like he hasn't been able to do it.
Because Sam Mendes is doing it now. You know, like
Sam Mendes not only did it, but Skyfall is paced almost exactly like a Nolan film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
almost.
you can tell Eon Productions is just like, you see those Nolan movies? See what he's doing
You
those
see
Batman
Inception?
movies?
Do that as a
Fucking
Bond film.
do that. When you're just like, when the man himself wants to do it, why didn't you just get the genuine article? Not to say that Sam Mendes is like a downgrading comparison.
No, Sam
but it's
Mendes
just,
is a
you know what I'm
a
aiming
genius.
for.
He's
It's
a
just
genius.
like,
But I think it's funny because I feel like there's so many movies here which are just him being like, okay, so this is my take on Bond. What do you think? You know, but like another property, you know, like, and it starts with Batman Begins because you get, this is a year before Casino Royale. Casino Royale is 2006 or
2007, I think.
and Batman Begins is 2005. So we're starting this like run of classic heroes done dark and dirty. You know, like we have
Casino Royale was 06.
Oh yeah, so we had it a year before you have Batman Begins, and they're down and dirty classic heroes is basically what we're getting here, and that's kind of continued on the down and dirty.
But he really leaned into sort of that like Batman Begins, Dark Knight, especially Rises goes in different directions, but we'll get to that. As just like everyone kind of makes a joke, it's like, oh, these are kind of just like crime/cop thrillers that just happen to have a dude in a bat suit. Just like, that's sort of the take. But then there's also like, they're really into like, here's the gadgets. Like Lucius Fox is basically like his Q.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not sad about that.
No, not at all.
I love, because I've always felt that Bruce and Bond are very similar in a lot of ways, but Bruce is obviously crazy. And Bond is misogynistic.
That's more or less Morrison, like Grant Morrison's take on Bruce Wayne as a character.
Is basically
just a
James
much more
Bond.
unstable James Bond.
And I really, there's a reason why the entire comic book film industry was changed because of these movies. There's a reason. First off, because they made moolah. They made bank. They made fucking cash. They fucking poured in. Like, Batman Begins did so well, but then Dark Knight came in and fucking smashed records. Fucking threw them out the window. Was just like, fuck your record.
Well, let's not get too harped up on Dark Knight just yet, because
not
there is
yet.
a film in between that.
But, okay, so Batman Begins, though, at the time, seemed like one of the best Batman movies ever made.
Yeah.
At the time, you were like,
I would have said, then I actually would probably still agree with this. As a kid, it still would have just been like, this is pretty good. 89 is still my favorite, but this is definitely the closest we've gotten to like a really great Batman movie. It's definitely more comic accurate, that's for sure.
As kids who grew up with Batman the Animated Series, it was cool to see a really good version of the Scarecrow. Like, you know, like, as somebody who reads the comics, you're just like, the fuck? You're like, Scarecrow, fuck yeah, you know? Like,
it was weird that, like, Begins went for such big swings, because you even look at, like, the Superman movies.
Yep.
They're so stuck on fucking Lex and Zod.
Lex and Zod.
And you would think, just like, well, we got to do the low-hanging
Atomic
fruit.
Man.
Let's just do Joker again. Just like, no, we'll do that next time. Let's do Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow. If
that's your combo of because every Batman movie has to have two villains.
Yeah.
It's a standard.
Don't know why, but
I don't know why.
Thanks, Burton.
Thanks, Burton. But if you went to like, I know they handed this movie to him, and then he took off with it. But like, if he came to them and was like, I want to do a Batman movie that stars Ra's al Ghul and the Scarecrow, you wouldn't sell that movie, you know?
Yeah, I think that might have been more like Goyer's thing.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
he had like more of a hand in like writing the script for Begins, and he was more of a consultant on the next new movies.
And I really love Batman.
Good.
Begins.
It's nice to just like give other villains the attention besides just like the obvious ones that everyone knows. And because of those films, because unless you were a comic book reader or you grew up watching the cartoons, you're not going to go to the you weren't going to go outside and point to someone who's like, who's Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul?
Yeah, exactly.
You'd be like, I don't know what that is. I know Joker. Is there Joker in it? I know Joker.
I think that one of the things that carries this movie is this absolute stellar cast. This is the Nolan. All the Nolan films has a great cast. It's known for Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. It's known for it.
Yeah.
But you got to give it to the base cast here: Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Ken Watanabe, Liam Neeson, Katie Holmes. One of my favorite all-time actors, Gary fucking Oldman, just disappearing into Gordon. Just like, if I could, we could do a whole podcast about how fucking good Gary Oldman is.
Gary Oldman as Gordon, especially in Begins, he's literally Gordon from year one.
Gone.
He is literally
He's him.
Frank Miller, James Gordon from Batman Year One.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It made me, as a comic book reader, so happy, you know, like to see this guy from the page just literally jump onto the screen. And there's a lot of things that happen in that movie that jump from the page to the screen, but him especially, like it just walks right off the page, and you're like, holy shit.
And there's a lot of Year One in Batman Begins.
No, absolutely.
It's not a direct adaptation, but they're like cherry picking a lot of stuff.
That's the best way to describe all of what Nolan does with this story, and that's why I think you will see most comic book readers, they would most of the time defend the Dark Knight trilogy. Out of all the Batman films, out of most comic book films, you would see them defend this trilogy strictly because they're not adapting a Batman story.
Yeah.
It's not a single Batman story or a single Spider-Man story. They combine several without feeling like Aquaman, where they were like, we're going to try to shove all this whole story in here really fast.
What if we just did the Jeff Johns run?
Yeah, right. Like,
all at once.
What if we just did
just
it
right
all
now?
in one go?
One go. Here we go.
There we go.
Do all of it.
Instead, Nolan takes and Goyer a lifetime of reading comics and then takes their favorite parts.
There's elements of a bunch of things, specifically mostly Year One, and as far as like tone is concerned, like a bit of Long Halloween in there,
Little
too.
Long Halloween.
You get to then it's more Long Halloween in The Dark Knight, and there's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You get to Rises, that's mostly Nightfall, Dark Knight Returns, and a bit of No Man's Land. So they pull.
It shows right away why it's year one with how heavy they lean into the Falcone family stuff. That is strictly Miller. No one else came up with the fucking mob names that stuck around than fucking Miller. No one else cares about which mob family Batman was fighting other than Falcones. Like it's just he nails it there in year one, and I love that they take it and run with it here. You get some. It's just so many good actors in this movie. It's kind of astounding. I really do. I think Batman Begins is a modern comic book classic because at a time when you were getting this was even before Iron Man. This was because this is 2005.
Yeah,
this is
Iron Man was 2008.
Yeah, it's funny because these do so well, and this is what DC thought everyone wanted. You know, like they were just like dark, gritty. That's what they want instead.
Yeah. And it's funny because the Nolan trilogy aren't that dark and gritty. They're just kind of like earnest, tonally consistent thrillers.
Yes.
But there's nothing in them to suggest that they're any like grittier or gratuitous than anything you'd see in like another PG-13 thriller.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's funny that that's what they thought was the part that was working. They're just like, this is the part that works, the dark and grittiness, and you're like, just or like, no, the well thought out combining of comic book storylines and adaptation.
Yeah, it's not hyper realistic. It's just grounded, which works for a character like Batman who doesn't have superpowers anyway.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that, like, to keep it consistent, we won't have stuff like Ra's al Ghul being immortal, but he'll still tick the boxes. Yeah. He's still very much Ra's al Ghul.
Seems like he won't die.
Yeah, just without, like, the supernatural element.
I also... Okay, so The Dark Knight is...
Before The Dark Knight.
No. But before we get into Dark Knight, I'm still talking about Batman Begins. The Dark Knight is my favorite. After. Yes, I know. I'm not skipping. Don't worry. Sure. I'm talking about soundtrack. The Dark Knight soundtrack is one of the first soundtracks I just like bought. You know, like I was just like, that was amazing. I need to go listen to that again. But all the stuff that really plays extremely well in The Dark Knight soundtrack-wise starts in Batman Begins. Yeah. And I don't think it's Hans Zimmer on Batman Begins. Isn't it Wally Pfizer?
No, Wally Pfister is the DP.
DP, sorry. Because I read that wrong. Because he got an Oscar nomination for this movie. For
It was Zimmer for all three films. And then Junkie XL was also like a collaborator on Rises.
Yes. I think Zimmer just really kills it here in Batman Begins. He really adds this impact to all these movies. He makes the punches land harder. He makes the action seem tighter. He makes it all seem important. Hans Zimmer really. This is where he's done amazing work. Hans Zimmer, there's over 300 credits on his IMDb. He's a nuts.
He had done The Lion King before that. He had also done like Gladiator. He did Hannibal. I don't like Hannibal, but oh man, that opera. Do you remember the opera scene in Hannibal? That's like
yep.
Yeah, that's supposed to be like I think the place is supposed to be Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it sounds like a classic opera that's been like around for centuries, and he wrote it as an original piece.
He's just like, fucking what?
It was so good that the Hannibal TV show used it a lot.
I think that Batman Begins it is such a good soundtrack. It's so stupid. It's so that like dun 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 is dun dun dun. It's driving, it's moving, it's so damn good. It feels like Batman at the same time as as feeling that grittiness, like that. It's so well done. I love the soundtrack for Batman Begins. I will say it's overshadowed by The Dark Knight, but man, does this soundtrack really.
But it is a film I appreciate a little more as I rewatch it. Yeah. I think my only point of contention is that like the action scenes are like sloppy.
I wouldn't say
it goes
sloppy.
It goes for
They're
this like
harder to witness.
Yeah. Here's the thing. The first set piece where he like attacks the goons at the docks.
You're not supposed to be able to see what's going on.
Yeah, it works for that because it's all like fast cuts and you're just like, oh, he's like this force of nature.
Yeah.
We can't comprehend them. But when you get to like the main climax where he's like fighting Ra's al Ghul's goons and it's all just shaky cam and fast cuts and you don't see a goddamn thing going on, it's very awkward.
It is very awkward. I also think Batman Begins suffers from being an origin story. I like this origin story. I like what they did here. I like everything about it. I'm just saying that doing an origin story again takes away from the movie being that much better. And that's why I think The Dark Knight really takes off, is that I was like, the Batman Begins, I was like, oh, another origin story. Then Dark Knight, they're like, nope, moving forward. And you're like, fuck yeah. But that's, again, jumping the gun. Moving on to... Now, this is the movie he does in between these. This is the one that feels personal.
Yeah.
Like, if Batman Begins, The Dark Knight are him making his money and really doing a corporate thing extremely well.
That whole old mentality, like one for them, one for me.
Yeah, exactly. The Prestige is the one for him. And... holy shit.
The Prestige is such an interesting one.
Yeah.
So it's a film about like two rival magicians.
Yep.
Constantly trying to one-up each other in like this long year, it's like over the years of like this huge war of attrition. It's so fascinating.
It really is. It's such a
but it's also like
one.
It's also like weird and met on like the commentary of just like the audience and wanting to be fooled, wanting to be played with, just to have like that sense of excitement. It's all about the performance
and how much these men put into this. Like that. They
much
destroy
like
their lives.
Filmmaker, if I had to put a finger on
something on it. This movie, it's about magic, but it's magical. Like there's something about this movie that feels mysterious, and ethereal,
and like stark. And bitter, and Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman work so well against each other. It's like bitter rivals who used to be like,
you just kind of get it. You get what they're angry about.
Yeah, and it gets to the point where like you switch back and forth between them so much that you don't really know who's in the right by the end of it, because it's just there's so much back and forth and all these drastic measures of them trying to like ruin each other's careers, trying to kill each other, etc. It's just ridiculous.
It's wild,
and then it gets really sci-fi too.
Yeah,
like it sticks to like straight up just like magic tricks. This is how it's done. This is how it's realistically done. The bullet catch, etc. And then we get into like real weird shit where like Hugh Jackman's character goes to visit Nikola Tesla, as played by David Bowie, which I gotta say, for casting.
But that's what I feel about it, is that the deeper these guys get into trying to fool each other and outbest each other, the deeper they get into like the magic of it. You know, like the real magic.
And then the cool thing about like the spoilers, I guess, the like
if you haven't seen fucking Prestige since 2006,
the clone stuff.
Yeah.
That also goes into like, what do you sacrifice for your performance? What do you give up? He's like, what part of yourself do you give up in order for your art? It's like, it's so weird. It's
weird.
A weird fucking movie, but it's awesome.
Weird one. The Prestige is, there's a reason why it's another one on the top IMDb top list, and this one passes it passes Memento and Batman Begins on this list at number 47.
It's a super interesting one.
It's a super interesting.
I haven't seen it in a while. Now talking about it's making me want to watch it.
We were talking about Wally Pfizer earlier. I by an accident mistake him.
Pfister. It's either Pfister or Feister. I'm not sure.
Either or. Sorry about that. He's fantastic, and he is the cinematographer for this too, and he got the Oscar nomination for a damn good reason. You know, like this is so well shot.
He worked consistently with Nolan up until The Dark Knight Rises.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I feel like they got each other. They understood each other, and they knew what they were trying to both accomplish. And I think that's why they worked so well.
And I think the only reason he didn't return for Interstellar was because he went to go on to like direct his own movie, which unfortunately was not good.
Which one was that?
I forget what it was called. It was it had like Johnny Depp in the lead. It was about like artificial intelligence.
Oh.
It was really bad.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Because David S. Goyer wrote it, and they fucking disappear into nothing. I forget, that movie was fucking not good. It was, talk about a snooze fest, where it has all these good ideas and then
that seems to be
through.
The case. But Nolan instead started using Hoyte Van... it's hard to pronounce the name.
Transcendence, that's the name of the
Transcendence, yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Bad, very bad.
And he's basically done a bunch of commercials since then, and then directed 2 episodes of The Tick for directing wise. Which The Tick is good. Tick's good.
I didn't watch all of it, but I enjoyed what I saw.
Yeah, the last time he was a cinematographer was The Dark Knight Rises. That's the last one. That's wild that he was a cinematographer by himself. Other than Taco Bell, Web of Fries 2, Franchise Wars. But
I mean, commercials can be good money.
Commercials could. I bet it's a fuckload of money for him. It's like, jeez. But I think it's kind of interesting. He kind of stepped away after Dark Knight Rises. He was just like, all right, moving on. Like, time for me to direct my movies. The Prestige is... the light ball scene alone, cinematography wise, you're just like,
It's such an interesting movie. Again, I haven't seen it in a while.
But it's a great rewatch too. It's like I finished it and watched it again.
That's why it's like, shit, now I want to watch it.
Now I want to watch it. I hope you get that from every one of our podcasts. I hope people listen to this and go, damn, I got to go watch that, because that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
But The Prestige, fantastic movie. But it leads right into, as I've said before, probably my favorite movie of all time. And I'm not saying it's the best movie. We've said this so many times. When I say favorite, I'm not saying it's the best movie ever. I'm saying this movie touched me and made me who I am. Yeah. And what I do. The Dark Knight, I was obsessed with this movie, and for good reason. The fucking movie's great. The movie's great.
Oh man.
Just
anything that anyone like talked about when it came out in theaters. When I fucking got the DVD when it finally came out, there was maybe 3 weeks where I would come home from school and just put it on.
I saw this movie 4 times in theaters. 4 times in theaters. One time it was right after another, and then the next time I saw it, it's like I was ready to go next weekend. The Dark Knight just blew me away from start to finish.
Only saw it the one time in theaters, and then watched a shitload of it once it was on home media.
I did see it in IMAX.
Just because I didn't see movies more than once until I was an adult, and I could just go by myself and not have to not ask my dad, what do you mean you want to see it again? You already saw it.
You're like, come on, let's go. I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX because that's the way Christopher Nolan intended it.
That's an interesting point. The first film to utilize IMAX cameras for narrative film, because it was used for documentaries beforehand.
And I've seen those. I've seen the NASCAR one. I've seen the space one. I used to go to a lot of IMAX films because I used to have a Museum of Science pass, and then we would go to the Bernie and Phil's that's close by to go see those IMAX films. Yeah. And that's where I saw The Dark Knight in IMAX. Okay, so it's a great movie, but there's something to be said seeing it in IMAX. There really is. And I know some people will say the same thing about Avatar. They're like, oh, wow, it was just amazing to see it in IMAX because it was so big on the screen. This is different. So what would happen was, you see the beginning of the film, and they prop the logos, and it's in the normal letterboxed form. Yeah. Like normal. The minute they fire the shot into the window so that way they can cross the buildings to the other building, which is literally the first shot of the film, the screen opens up to fit the whole thing of IMAX, and I literally just like came in my pants as a kid. I just was like, fucking what? And it blew me away. And yes, that format doesn't stay the whole time. It moves back down for the scenes that are not IMAX.
Yeah, there's only select few scenes that are filmed in IMAX.
That's why Dark Knight Rises is kind of amazing because it's all IMAX. And
it's fun. It's funny because like
shit.
it's been like slowly creeping up to the point where we've gotten to the point where like Infinity War and Endgame were entirely shot on it.
Entirely shot.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind.
Yeah.
Seeing it in IMAX
No problem with me.
is magical. The Dark Knight, it's hard to put into words for me without like just gushing and gushing and gushing and gushing. I love this movie. Of course, we'll get it right off the way. This is Heath Ledger's last movie, and he is spectacular. Like, we're just getting this right out of the gate because this is what everyone knows we're going to talk about it. Heath Ledger, if this wasn't his last film, this would be the start of one of the greatest acting careers.
His career was already on the up, like slowly creeping up by the time he did The Dark Knight. And this film would have taken him places. It sort of reminds me of like Brandon Lee's Death and the Crow.
Yeah, where you're just like, damn.
Post The Crow, Brandon Lee would have been huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And it's funny because this is one of the things Batman films do. They bring in either a well-known actor or a not so well-known actor. More like they put somebody against type into the movie to see what they can do. You know, like it's a very common thing that Nolan does, but also it's now become common in Batman movies. You know, like just to put somebody in against type. You starts off with Jack Nicholson, and then you have Danny DeVito as the Penguin. You know, like it. You know, you have Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey, and then that just continues on and on and on. And I feel like The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger, at the time, it seemed like such a crazy pick, you know, like because you were just like the guy from 10 Things I Hate About You is going to be the Joker, or like, from Knight's Tale, or from
Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, that was everybody's joke. They're like, Brokeback Mountain is going to be Joker. Like,
it was just like super homophobic jokes. Yeah, but hey, it was 2008.
Yeah, it's 2008, I guess.
Yeah.
But he just kills it. He just is gone. If I'm talking about, and that's what I love about The Dark Knight, is the cast is fantastic, but not only are they just fantastic in themselves, they're doing fantastic. These guys are gone in their roles. Heath Ledger, gone. There's no Heath Ledger there. There is just Joker. Gary Oldman, he is fucking Jim Gordon. And there's nothing else. Like, there's nothing else there.
There's definitely, like, a shift.
And Aaron Eckhart as like, Two-Face.
So good. Harvey Dent's so good.
So good.
There's definitely a shift, not only in aesthetic for the way the film looks, as like Nolan had to like film around filming in IMAX, but also like what little comic bookiness that had tended to be in Batman Begins is sort of just like more like grinded down into like that crime thriller aesthetic. Because I have heard the thing that's just like, man, I miss when Gotham was a little more
gothic.
And you have a bit of that in Batman Begins.
Yes, you do.
Then
because you get shots of it is Chicago, but you get shots of it, and you're like, that looks like Gotham.
I think of like the Narrows.
Yes.
Just like, that's very Gotham. But then you get to like Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, and then you're just like, this is Chicago and Vancouver and Washington.
It's all these cities put together.
Yeah.
This movie moves. This movie starts and it just goes. I bought the screenplay for this because I don't do that for many movies. I think I have like 3 scripts, and it's The Dark Knight, it's Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and one other film. I don't have many scripts.
The only one I have like physically, because I have like a bunch on my laptop when they just put them up.
Yeah.
Because they're good,
they're good,
like reference material to look at.
Yeah.
The only one I own physically is Inception, just because like the nice.
Oh
edition.
yes, that's my third one because I have that nice one. Yeah,
the edition I had just came with like the shooting script as a book.
I fucking love that book. That book's great. But The Dark Knight, the script is so fantastic. It just, you feel like you hear those stories of producers and they're reading a script and they're just like, I couldn't stop reading it and I couldn't put it down. We have to make this movie. That's how everyone must have felt reading The Dark Knight, because you read it and you're just like, holy shit balls, like it just, it's almost, as great as the film is, the script is so damn good, like, and it almost gets into things deeper than the movie does sometimes, like about the Joker's movements and stuff like that. Yeah. And you're kind of like, you only see that and reading it. You're like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing here. Like I see what they're up to.
It's interesting that like what's good about the trilogy, and this will become more of a factor when we start talking about Rises, is that stuff that's hinted at in a previous installment tends to be like paid off later.
Yes.
Like the whole ending when Batman Begins, when he gives them the Joker card, is that he talks about escalation.
Yes.
That's basically like the entire framework of Dark Knight.
Yeah, it's true.
And then even with Joker's speech in The Dark Knight when he's being interrogated, it's just like, look, when the chips are down, these civilized people will eat each other. And that's literally what happens in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, it's true. And he really does. He pays off things, and that's what's so great is that he doesn't, and I think that's why this will stand out as one of the great comic book trilogies, is because there's no like weird jumps in between movies. This is a very contained story, and Nolan wants to tell it, and it shows from a lot of it at the beginning of in Batman Begins is about like Wayne Enterprises and how they make their money and stuff like that. And then like for the first bit of Dark Knight, it's about him taking down a certain banker, like it's interesting, like it's crimes it's like, it's not something usually Batman would be involved in per se, but
the fact like this Asian businessman is like in league with the mob.
Yeah.
And he's also working with Wayne Enterprises. The fact that he just goes to Hong Kong to like bring him back to Gotham so he can be arrested,
and that's the part that cracks me up because it feels so James Bondish. Like if we were talking Batman Begins was like James Bond, this Dark Knight is basically him leaning into the Bond aesthetic even further, especially with Joker here, because Joker, as great as he is here, he's basically a Bond villain.
Very Bondish.
He's very Bond villainy, where he's not actually interacting with Batman a lot, but he's causing pain for Batman.
But every one of his actions directly affects him.
Exactly like a Bond villain, like exactly like I will do this and then it causes this, like.
But just even down to like how intricate the gadgets are this time. Like we're gonna do like a Halo jump. We're gonna do the sky.
Right.
The sonar things. Just like these are all very Bondy, more so than Batman.
The spikes in the arm shooting
the arm
out.
that can shoot out.
That's very Bondy. I think the thing that not only is Heath Ledger amazing as Joker, it's how they write the Joker into this story.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where it's so familiar and so recognizably the Joker, yet so wholly its own iteration, too.
Yes. He's still very much the Joker. He's still very showy. He's still very saying a bad joke, like he's still very... you can see the hatred literally like bubbling right below his everything, and that's what still plays as the Joker, but he's still uniquely Heath Ledger's Joker here, like he's still very...
They also keep to the thing with the Joker is that his origin is mysterious. It's completely ambiguous. The fact that like he has like all the you want to know how I got these scars, and it's a different story every time. The whole goes back to the Killing Joke thing. If I'm going to have a backstory, it might as well be multiple choice.
Might as well be multiple choice. I love this movie for not only doing its own thing, but also adapting great parts of Batman stories. Like, there's some great Killing Joke here. There's some great... there's little Joker stories all over this.
Yeah,
this is like
there's
this is an amalgamation of everything Joker.
Man Who Laughs. There's a bit of...
A lot of Man Who Laughs. If to be fair,
Killing Joke.
One of the main things in this story is a Man Who Laughs.
Killing Joke, and like tone-wise, it feels very Long Halloween. I would say those are like the big three ones for that one.
And I would say there is a definite Batman the Animated Series influence on this. I feel like they are as much as they want to keep it adult. Mark Hamill's Joker bleeds into this Joker a lot.
A bit, yeah.
I think he must have gotten some influence from it.
Either that, or it's just a case of Mark Hamill's iteration of the Joker is Joker. It's just the comic book Joker in all the different like shades. Like people make the comparisons that like each live action Joker feels a particular like aspect of the Joker as he's been portrayed many different iterations in the comics, whereas like Mark Hamill's Joker is just the Joker.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have like the more mobster version when you have Jack Nicholson. With Ledger, you get more of like the anarchist.
Yeah, the anarchist, the chaos, the chaos that goes on, and then you get the Joker movie, and you get the like the madness of Joker, what that means. But basically, if this wasn't Heath Ledger's last performance, this is still a breathtaking performance from him. He's astounding. He's gone. It's the little things that get me constantly. And I know everyone makes fun of the licking of the lips, but it's those little things that make it so astounding.
You know, the only reason he did that was because like his mouth would dry up from like the makeup, or, like the mannequin grin, like the Cheshire grin.
I love that.
But then he just like turned it into like
a tick of it
for him, and it's really good.
He just captures that like that chaotic energy so well.
And it's weird. He doesn't really laugh all that much in the film, but when he actually does laugh, it's frightening.
Yeah, you're like, oh shit.
The laugh that everyone remembers is the one where he's like torturing the guy on the news broadcast.
Oh yeah,
and he like laughs before he like messes with them.
Oh man, and Heath Ledger, like as much as we were talking about Michael Caine as Alfred gets some really good speeches. Heath Ledger as Joker gets some really good monologues here. I think the whole like stabbing your friend monologue is
like,
frightening.
You want to know why
and so well done.
Just like guns are too quick. You can't savor the little details. Just like in their last moments, people show you who they really are.
Yeah.
So in a way, I knew your friends better than you ever did. You're like, fuck.
Yeah, like fucking shit. It's not only so well written, it's so well acted, it's so well shot. There's a reason why I say this is my favorite, because it's just I sit there watching the movie going, how can you be so fucking good?
Yeah.
How can you be so good? All of this.
I love the theories surrounding like Joker's origin that's like popped up over the years.
Yeah.
It's interesting to think about. One of the ones that seems to like really play is that the Joker might have been like some sort of like war veteran or military person that was screwed over.
Yeah.
And then they like point to the evidence of like what he brings up in his speeches about like how society like
crumbles,
and society crumbles. I'm like, that does kind of play.
But
it's always good to just leave that unanswered. Everyone can have their own interpretation.
Everyone can have their own thing. The other thing I love about The Dark Knight, other than the big things, the action's fantastic. The Bale is doing a less subdued Batman voice, so you can understand him. He's doing a great job here.
I prefer his voice in Begins.
Yeah, you like the deeper.
In Begins, it's just kind of low.
Yeah,
Falcone sent them to kill you. You rattled his cage. In Dark Knight and Rises, it's full on.
But it's iconic. It's iconic now.
It is now.
It is now iconic. Just the bark and I think the flow of the movie is astounding to me. I think that the way it just kind of like, and then Batman runs off. Bruce Wayne runs off with a bunch of ballerinas, and then he takes the ballerinas. He runs away from the ballerinas to go to China, so that way he can get that guy. You're just like, what?
But he also does it as like a middle finger to Harvey.
Yeah, right. It's just like, right. He just like fucks over the ballet. Just
that they were going to go to.
It's good shit. The movie moves, but I think the thing that stands out for me as a fan, and not just as like a film guy, but as a Batman fan, is the little tiny Batman details that they work into this. You know, like the little things that seem like they hint to a much larger universe, like that maybe the guy that Batman grabs at the police parade scene was Edward Nygma, you know, like they grab a guy and he turns out to be who's the guy with the clock and the Calendar Man. They basically grab Calendar Man at one point, and you're just
he does look like him,
and you're like, oh shit, you know, like and there's lots of little tiny details that hint at other things that make you go, as a fan, go, oh damn, this movie understands.
I do want to bring something up because it's one that I get really irritated about.
Okay, what
is, in retrospect, the film came out in 2008.
Yeah,
like it's older now.
It's old,
which is
older now.
Funny to think about. But in the wake of like how like the comic book movie boom has like changed and shifted around, I hate this like retroactive like dismissal of not only the Dark Knight's accomplishments, but people who try to belittle it by saying that the movie wouldn't be what it was without Heath Ledger.
See, okay, so you take Joker out of this plot. You still, as much as he drives the plot and make things happen, this is still a damn good movie. This is still a movie about the heart of a city falling.
Yeah. If you took Joker out and shifted the primary focus to Two-Face, to Harvey, it still would have played.
It still would have played.
And maybe not have been as good, but it still would have been damn good. Because to be honest, I think
really
about
does.
it just like, yeah, I love the Joker stuff, but my favorite scene in the movie it has something to do with Joker, but he's not even in it.
Yeah.
My favorite scene in the movie is near the end, the last confrontation between Bruce, Harvey, and Gordon with his kids like on the roof.
Yeah.
That's my favorite scene in the movie.
Yeah, that's your favorite. There's lots of favorites.
Just
for
that,
me.
just
There's
that
lots
whole
of...
Harvey just going through, just like it's like the world is unfair, and the only fairness in a cruel world is chance.
It's chance,
and just him just breaking down, just like the Joker took everything from me.
Oh, he's so good. Like Aaron Eckhart, I forever watch anything with Aaron Eckhart in it.
And I love
I think he's good.
I loved how they did the Two-Face.
Yes.
The effect.
And for people who didn't know, because you're babies, and they hid Two-Face's face from all the marketing. You never saw what Two-Face looked like. And you were saying favorite scene. My favorite scene in the whole movie is Joker and Two-Face in the hospital room.
Hospital.
It's, first off, an extremely well-written scene, and both of them are acting their asses off, but also was the first time you saw Two-Face. And I remember gasping in the theater. Gasping because I was so like, yes, that's perfect.
You see him before that.
A little bit, yeah, because he does the turn.
He does
yells
the turn
at.
and he looks and he like tells Gordon,
Yeah.
I was waiting for it too. I was getting so impatient.
Yeah, you're like, show it to me!
Because like after I'm like, once he got the scene where he like falls and it catches fire because his face was like covered in like oil. When they kept hinting at it. He had the rags over, and every time he would turn to look at Gordon, and Gordon, you would just cut back to Gordon, and he'd be like,
yeah, he'd be like,
they
shit.
just kept teasing it. I'm like, show me this fucking face. It's just like, this better be fucking
This
worth it.
better be worth it.
And then, yeah, it was totally worth it.
Man, we could have done a whole podcast about The Dark Knight. Is really it. So we'll really move on, but I love this movie. Head over heels about this movie. It's The Dark Knight. It changed me as a filmmaking kid, and it made me want to watch more movies. I saw Batman Begins and I watched Following, and Dark Knight just sent me on more.
Yeah, I didn't go into the deep dive for Nolan until after The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
That was like the thing to be like, I need to watch every single thing this man has made.
I was already an Nolan fan going into Dark Knight. That was the thing, is I was already like, I saw Batman Begins, I saw Following, Memento, I was ready, I had just not seen The Prestige, it was one of those things that I was just missing that for a long time. I saw Prestige like years later. It's a great movie. So The Dark Knight blows me out of the water.
Yeah.
But then he goes, hey, I got this other movie. It's called Inception, and it's about time. And you're just like...
dreams and
time. And you're like, okay. And then you see the first trailer and you're like, Okay. And then I saw it in movie theaters, and I literally left the theater, turned around, and went back to the next showing. I fucking love The Dark Knight. I fucking love Inception.
Inception is probably my favorite.
It's man,
because it's always going to be a back and forth between like it and The Dark Knight. But when I say my top 5 favorite movies, it's always Inception is always in there.
It's always in there because it strictly comes down to a good heist movie is fun. A good heist movie is the epitome of movie magic. I feel like you can do a really succinct, fun, impressive heist movie. You know, like that's what you can do. And that's what Inception is that it is a classic heist movie. Yeah. You know, like in its very bare bones way, it's just a heist movie.
It's an intricate heist movie, but at the core of it, it's also about dreams and a man's mental stability and a huge character study on top of that. It's just the old thing of just because something's been done a million times doesn't mean you can't bring something new to the table.
This to me, Inception is like Edgar Wright's Baby Driver.
Yeah.
Inception was the project that they had been working on forever. Whenever somebody talked to them about what they wanted to work on, it was always Inception.
I think
it was always Baby Driver for Edgar.
He was like working on that script like on and off over the
course
of
10 years. He said over 10 years, and to me, it shows. This movie is so well thought out, and so every bit of it's thought through and calculated, and I think that's the impression you get when you watch it, is that every bit of this was thought out and done to the T. Yeah. And then when you're spit out the other side, you're like, fuck, I gotta see that again. Like, I gotta know what the hell I just witnessed. And I'm not saying because I didn't understand what I saw. I wanted to see it again because I was just like, I was so swept away with how amazing that was that I need to like calmly look at it, you know, like and understand what was going on. And shit, I love that movie. It comes down to that we were talking about Christopher Nolan knows his structure, and this movie is a masterclass in structure and use of time.
Oh yeah,
it's a masterclass. It's amazing. I think it's one. I think this stands out for you better than The Dark Knight for a best movie because dialogue wise, it's not constrained to the comic booky feel that the Batman movies have to.
And even though most of the film like is set up and exposition, it's still just entirely engaging.
Yes,
just like its sense of like layers, and the deeper layers you go, the more time is used. Yeah, the more time is used. Just the idea of like the totems and stuff like that, something that keeps some sense of like stability.
It's the universe building is absolutely fantastic. For a film where you don't really know what's happening in the outside world of the film, it's able to world build extremely well. Like, you know, like you start off this thing with just Cobb doing normal espionage, you know, like corporate espionage, and then they bring him what the main plot of the film is this kind of like it's another job that's like slightly personal for him, of course, you know, like that's how it gets worse.
Of course.
Like, and I think that this stands up with the best heist films ever made. You know, like that's really my thought with Inception, is that like if you were a big Ocean's 11 fan or any heist film, you know, like Great Escape, anything like that, Inception.
Well, Great Escape's not heist.
They still come up with a plan and
it's
an execute plan,
but it's a prison break more
prison break, which is very similar in that they have an end goal that they have to reach.
Yeah, it has like that. It like kind of hits the same beats.
But like, it's just that's what's so great about this, is that it's a heist film, but it's also a sci-fi, and it's also an action film down to earth at some points. You
It's
know,
also very psychological.
yeah, very psychological.
There are
like
elements of like a psychological thriller in here too.
because all the dreams they drop into visually shows something about the psyche of what's going on. It's why this movie is endlessly rewatchable. If I saw The Dark Knight in theaters 4 times, I saw Inception in theaters 4 times. I just kept seeing it. It was so good, and it was funny because it was one of Mary, my wife, just wanted to see it again too. You know, like Dark Knight, she was like, "I'm okay." Like you saw it, you can keep going seeing it. But Inception, she was like, "Let's go again," and I was like, "Yeah, let's fucking go again!" Like, and it really, it's amazing. I remember. So when you go to film school and you've been watching films as long as me and Deshaun have, films don't surprise you. You know, like
it's tough.
Yeah, it's tough because you can predict anything because you know how movies work, you know how structure works, you know how all of this functions. And I think that's why Nolan stands out for filmmakers and people like you and me, Deshaun, is because he takes these structures and he messes with them.
Yeah.
And he takes them somewhere that they haven't been. And that's what I think we appreciate about them.
Yeah. Like the reveal in Inception, it's funny when you rewatch it because it's staring you right in the face, and yet it's still a surprise by the end.
Yeah, right.
That like I knew how to do Inception because I did it on my wife. The film literally gives it away.
Yeah.
Like Joseph Gordon-Levitt literally says it out loud.
Says it.
And you're just like, how did I not fucking catch that?
I also, Inception, first off, I had the poster in my room. I fucking love this. But the cast with and they're all in the poster. That's why I bring up the poster.
Yeah.
Is fantastic. If The Dark Knight really blew you away with how great the cast was, this one's great too. Leonardo DiCaprio, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Tom Hardy.
This was definitely like
Cillian Murphy.
a big stepping stone in like the DiCaprio renaissance, where he was like,
yeah,
I'm going for big fucking
I'm going for
now.
big things. And yeah, I would say this was the start of him going back to, you know, like the movies, because you had you had Departed in 2006 and Blood Diamond and Body of Lies in 2008, but then and then Revolutionary Road for him, but then you have Shutter Island and Inception, and then I think after that he just keeps going
Definitely would
hard.
have had Django after that.
Yeah,
so.
Django's 2012, 2 years after that, and and then the next year's Wolf of Wall Street. You know, like, and that just, you know, like that's just him going hard at that point. And I think Michael Caine has some of his best moments here. I also think there's some great surprises from Pete Post. How do you say his fucking last name there?
Postlethwaite, I think.
He is a character actor you've seen since the 70s.
Yeah, he was one of those actors. You always have those actors that you're just like, I love him. I'll never remember your name, but I love you. Every time you show up, it's a treat, even if you only have a couple lines.
He's Kobayashi in Usual Suspects. He's in The Town. But the reason why I remember him the most is he's the asshole from Jurassic Park: The Lost World who keeps pissing off the dinos, and you're just like,
I remember that. Oh no, he's not the asshole. He's more just like the noble hunter.
Yeah,
so
noble
like,
hunter.
I have to hunt a T-Rex, fulfill my dream. I remember him from that, and I remember him being like the creepy, mysterious old man from James and the Giant Peach.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
with the eye.
Yeah, with the eye. You're right. This is also Inception is the movie that made me take notice of Tom Hardy.
What, Star Trek Nemesis was it?
Yeah, it was Star Trek Nemesis, that's for sure. Tom Hardy has always been a good actor. There's no question there. He's done some great things. But I think that it's because you have Rock and Roller and Bronson, like, you know, like those are great.
Bronson's
so fucking good. He's a great actor. But I think that Inception is where I think the entire Main Street audience went, who that dude? Because he doesn't do too much here.
Yeah, it's not.
He's one of the characters brought in very late in the heist. Like almost right before they drop into the dream, they kind of bring him in as somebody who knows how to do this already.
For what little he has, he's like the most charismatic one.
Yeah, right.
And
Other than
he's kind of
Jordan
the
Levitt,
snarky
like
one. Yeah. Everyone always remembers like Joseph Gordon-Levitt firing like the rifle.
Yeah.
And Hardy coming in just being like, you mustn't be afraid to dream a little larger, dog. And just fucking pulls out a grenade launcher.
Just so good. And then that after that, he like Inception happens, and then Christopher Nolan says, well, you could be Bane, right? And then that's when everybody and their mother went, Tom Hardy needs to be in my fucking movies. And then you have Locke, The Drop, Mad Max, Legend, which is
Locke.
Crazy, Revenant, Dunkirk. Like
Locke is great.
Like recently Capone. Like Tom Hardy is one of the great actors of our time.
Yeah, he's becoming like one of the more like prominent character actors of our day.
I would say, and I'm always excited to see him. So, Inception, there's not enough nice things I could say about Inception. We used to, like you said earlier, we used to use a litmus test in college. We would be like, were you confused by Inception? Yes, me and Deshaun were assholes back in college, and we used to question people directly to their face if they understood Inception or not, and then roasted them if they did not. Like,
oh, man.
Straight to their faces.
We were so confrontational. So fucking funny. I remember someone like in a class that wasn't even mine. Wasn't even mine. Someone was talking shit about Superman. Just like, Superman sucks. I hate Superman. What worst fucking superhero ever. And I opened the door to the classroom, and I was like, what?
What? What'd you say?
To a man I didn't even know. Just like, what'd you say?
But it's true. We used to be a lot more confrontational about these things. And Inception was one of those things that we used to really fucking like get in on people all the time. And then we'd get in arguments because people would be like, Inception isn't that good. It's overly complicated. Bullshit. And you're like, first off, if you thought it was overly complicated, that means you're stupid. And you didn't understand what the fuck was going on if you thought it was over complicated. There's at most 4 time jumps. How fucking hard is that? Go watch Memento if you were fucking confused. Yeah. Like, I bet you didn't even get through
that was always the
Memento
thing.
if you didn't
That was always the thing
understand.
I brought up. It's like, you think Inception was confusing?
Yeah, go fucking watch
It's like
Memento.
Memento would probably melt your brain.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, why?
But more positive things to say about Inception. The goddamn score.
The goddamn score. I have it on vinyl. I love,
look, man,
love this soundtrack. I used to listen to it all the time.
Yeah, you could say however you want that you got tired of like everyone emulating the one. But hey, man, when you're the trendsetter.
Yeah, that's the thing is they created that trend. Like Inception did that, and just the sound design in the movie, how sometimes things far off sound like they're like a second behind because they're going up to the next level of dream. So fucking genius.
When the van goes off the bridge.
Yeah.
And the fucking Joseph Gordon-Levitt has that fight in the hotel hallway where it's on a gimbal.
Oh, man. That's the thing is like it does those like classic movie things where you would never be able to see it anywhere else. Yeah. You know, like that's where movies and anime and movies shine, is that you couldn't see this anywhere else you were looking, and that's what this movie is. You know, like you just couldn't see this anywhere. And I'll forever just continue. If you put on Inception now, I'll watch it. Right. You know, like it's just so good. Next up though, and that's the thing is that this was. I feel like Nolan always hits it out of the park. I think he's always doing great things, but I feel like he was just like, all right, I fucking did Dark Knight, fucking great. All right, moving on. We did Inception, fucking awesome. Give me all the money I want for Dark Knight Rises and don't talk shit. Because that's what happens so we have Batman Begins, which feels like some producer was sitting there being like, Nolan, do the movie. And then Dark Knight, they were like, here, do whatever you want
It's very much like the trepidation surrounding the genre, like post-Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Just like, okay, if we're going to do it, we have to do it right. We have to do it right.
And that's what Batman Begins feels like. And Dark Knight feels more like, oh, whatever you want to do, Christopher Nolan, because obviously you know what you want to do. Then Dark Knight Rises is the even step further of that, where they were like, whatever you want to do, Nolan, you can do it. I don't give a fuck. Whatever you want to do, because and it really it's Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers was like they own all these movies: Prestige, Batman Begins, Insomnia. They've been hooked onto this guy for a long time, for good fucking reason. Because the Dark Knight made. Set records for movies, and Dark Knight Rises came close to those records, and which they never expected to do, and you can tell they never expected.
And Heath Ledger won the posthumous Oscar,
first ever. First ever.
Not first ever, but the second ever. And the last one that was like decades before.
Dark Knight Rises is the most controversial out of all the Batman series of the Nolan series. Some people come out of it going, that's not how my Batman story would end, or that they didn't like the direction it goes, or which for me, I never understood. This was a different Batman story that was always apparent, so this was gonna end differently.
I love The Dark Knight Rises. It's a very different movie, and it's not as good as The Dark Knight.
No, but The Dark Knight is fantastic, but The Dark Knight Rises is Return of the King with Batman. Mm-hmm. It's Christopher Nolan doing his fucking epic.
Yeah,
and that's what it is. It's a citywide epic, and it's I like it.
And it's interesting. It's also, in a lot of ways, the most, like, comic booky in a lot of ways. Like, it starts to, like,
if there's one that really leans into the stories, it's The Dark Knight Rises, because what do we got here? We got Nightfall.
Dark Knight Returns.
No
Man's Land.
And No Man's Land.
Yeah.
That literally, that's what this is. There's no, like, there's definitely a lot of Christopher Nolan creating his own story, but this is the one that feels the most like this is a comic book story we're adapting.
Yeah,
which is not,
it's an interesting,
not a bad thing. So I see why people would get angry with the ending, because yes, it's hard to imagine Batman getting a happy ending, because what we're really dealing with when we're talking about Batman is trauma.
Yeah.
Is a man having to deal with his trauma, and sometimes the end of that story is that the trauma never goes away.
Yeah.
That the trauma stays, always. And what Nolan kind of does here is kind of lets Batman heal a little bit. And I don't know if people agree with that.
Yeah,
but
I totally think it works for this version of Batman.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could argue that Batman would never actually give up in the comics. It's like, yeah, but comics are also designed to go on forever.
Forever. That's their point.
That's a different thing. It's a different medium.
Yeah, and in a film, you have to finish. You have to have your ending. And what, you're going to have Bane blow up the city? That was going to be your ending?
This is a more self-contained, grounded version of Batman, and that's the precedent it's set from the beginning. So why is it so hard to believe that we went for something a little more grounded and let Bruce actually have somewhat of a happy ending?
Now, I say The Dark Knight Rises,
or to have a version of Batman that does conclude.
I say Return of the King because this concludes an epic storyline, and it takes it to its most epic nth. Like, this is Batman fighting on the streets with other people who believe in his cause. Mm-hmm. It goes from Batman being the lone defender to defending the city.
Yeah.
And so for me, that works with the story arc of all the Nolan films.
Yeah.
Is that's what he's been going for.
And it pays so many things off full circle, because I had already brought up the fact that, like, Joker brought up just, like, you take away, like, the barriers and, like, these civilized people, like, they'll eat each other. That's exactly what happens in The Dark Knight Rises. That gets paid off. But the entire point that's further iterated, not only throughout Batman Begins, but in The Dark Knight, is just like, I can't do this forever. The idea is to inspire.
Exactly.
And not only does he succeed in inspiring the people to just, like, fend for themselves, but he also inspires a successor in John Blake in the actual film. So he fulfills the goal he started with in Batman Begins. It was never about just, like... Because this version of Batman's not... It's not like a Miller-esque Batman where it's like, it's all about the mission. Yeah. Just like, no, there's a point. Like, I can't do this. Like, I need to be a symbol, and this needs to move beyond me.
Yeah, and that's what's and when you're talking about escalation, like in Dark Knight, this is the ultimate escalation. You go from I'm holding 2 boats hostage and one of them might blow up in Dark Knight Returns, Dark Knight, to Dark Knight Rises, where he's like, I'm going to blow up the fucking Eastern Seaboard. Like, like, this is not like that. The ultimate escalation.
Batman will stop you. What? He always stops you. No, he doesn't. What about the time with the 2 boats? This is bigger than the 2 boats.
This is bigger than the 2 boats. It's true, though. I gotta say, we were talking about Tom Hardy earlier. Tom Hardy makes this movie.
Yeah,
he makes this movie. I'll argue that Heath Ledger doesn't make The Dark Knight Returns. I mean, Dark Knight. Oh my God, I'm getting them all confused. Dark Knight. He doesn't make The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight can stand on its own without Heath Ledger, but he sends it to that, like, timeless movie moment. But Dark Knight Rises, Hardy carries so much of this movie. Like, he's so good.
Here's the, like, point I'll give,
and that's strictly because Catwoman's not so great. She's fine. She's fine.
Yeah.
And that's basically my highest compliment.
Yeah, she's actually a little more accurate to Selena than, like, Michelle Pfeiffer was. But it's just a different thing.
Yeah.
A point I'll give in Tom Hardy's Bane's, like, favor over Heath Ledger is that I never feel like Heath Ledger ever, like, improved on the character, the Joker, because it's the Joker.
Yeah.
But Tom Hardy effectively
changed Bane.
Recreated Bane, redefined him, and honestly made him a more developed character.
So,
Bane's a cool character in the comics as far as Nightfall is concerned, but he's kind of like a one-trick pony.
So, so in comics, you have Nightfall. It's Bane's ultimate plan. He takes down the entire city and breaks the Bat.
Yeah.
Like, it's mostly Batman's equal. It's a big hulking dude. He's extremely smart, and that's the important part here. Bane is supposed to be Batman's equal in not only brawn, but brains.
Yes.
And in the 90s with Batman and Robin, you have Bane and Poison Ivy being pointed together, which was never a thing.
Never.
If you read comics, there was never a comic where Bane was somehow Poison Ivy's
like
lackey.
Yeah.
That was never a thing. So the Batman and Robin take on Bane really took over what Bane was, and he became, even in the comics, this big hulking dude who
like
was always just like a big guy to fight.
Yeah, just like a dumb brute.
And I always miss the Nightfall smartness of because it always felt like he was one step ahead of Batman, and he was ripping him apart and just like it had him on every turn, like even when in Nightfall, when Batman tries to take back the city several times, he just beats him back. He's just like, Bane's just like, no, fuck you, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, I think of Bane as far as he's supposed to be originally portrayed as like a Khan from Star Trek.
Yes. Bane's also great because, especially in the Nolan films, is because he's kind of the final answer from Ra's al Ghul. It's like, it's all about escalation and reaching this thing that finally meets Batman, but it's also this, like, I can't, it's like, he takes all that Ra's al Ghul was talking about and puts it into truer action.
Practice, yeah.
Yeah, like,
and that's another thing that plays to like it really being the conclusion of the trilogy is that Dark Knight is it feels so far removed from Batman Begins in a
Yeah,
lot of ways.
in a way, it almost feels like another story. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and-
not even
and
it's
Dark Knight
connected,
Rises
but not.
and Dark Knight Rises doesn't forget like what Begins sets up and it tries to pay off.
Yeah, and I love Tom Hardy's Bane here. He's so fucking good.
He's much more fascinating than what we actually got, especially like post Nightfall.
Yes, and it's just the way Bane plays him. It's the presence. It's the intimidation. It's how big Tom Hardy is there. Like he's just hulking and huge.
Yeah, he has just
the way he moves towards Batman is fucking frightening.
like such a presence and swagger. Like he looks like a big dumb brute with a stupid mask, but then he speaks so eloquently.
He's like, rise.
This is your ally. And make fun of the voice all you want. It's now iconic. We can definitely say that now after that film has been a few years out.
Is that everyone still makes weird Bane jokes?
Yeah, they made fun of it in the Lego Batman movie. Yeah. Even the Harley Quinn show has him with the Tom Hardy voice.
It's wild. It's wild how it's kind of transferred over. And we've had comic book stories after Dark Knight Rises where Bane has gone back to being a smart guy.
Yeah.
Instead
And they make him more Tom Hardy-esque. Like, I remember even as far back as, like, back when Tony S. Daniel was writing Detective Comics for the New 52, and Bane would show up, and he would literally, like, quote Tom Hardy lines.
Yeah, right? And you're like, what? Huh?
So, like, the influence was already there.
The influence was flying. See, The Dark Knight Rises, it's a controversial movie in that I feel like some people didn't get what they wanted out of it. But it's an epic movie, and it's one that I, like, think about a lot. Yeah. You know, like it might not be the best out of all three of them because obviously that's The Dark Knight, and it's hard when you're trying to debate Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises which one's better. Yeah. But like because obviously one's a more epic conclusion to a story than a beginning of a story. So it's hard to compare the two. But it's amazing how much The Dark Knight Rises, for not being as a visceral sensation as Dark Knight was, it still holds a huge place in pop culture.
Yeah.
And Bane, it went from being like, nobody can beat Heath Ledger's Joker, like nobody can do it, no one should even try, to, wow, how fucking good is Heath Ledger as Bane, you know, like...
Tom Hardy as Bane.
Oh my God, Tom Hardy as Bane. My brain is just like...
and to be fair, like... as far as The Dark Knight Rises is concerned and, like, its controversy, let's be honest with ourselves. There is a good percentage, as far as the Nolanverse is concerned, of people who only really care about The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are people who probably there are a bunch of people who have only seen The
Dark
Knight.
I knew...
and don't care about Batman
I knew
Begins
several
Dark
people
Knight
who
Rises.
posted after seeing Dark Knight Rises that they didn't know there was a Batman Begins, which made me viscerally angry.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like...
you know, and then like the rest of the complaints you could kind of chalk up to just like nitpicky bullshit.
Yeah.
This is also in the age of like CinemaSins are starting to like really take off. So just like, well, how did Batman get back into the city? It's like, it doesn't really matter. It's fucking Batman.
It's movie time.
If like those two, if like
if
those fucking agents snuck in on a van and were able to get into the city, I'm
you
sure
don't think
he
Batman
found a
could?
way.
Yeah, like come
all
on.
just like nitpicky shit, and it's just good.
It is good. It is good. And I'm not afraid to say it. It is good. Yeah. You know, like it may not be as perfect and well-rounded as The Dark Knight, but it is good in its own rights. Now, after this, how do you top the epic conclusion to your Dark Knight trilogy? One of the better trilogies out there. If we're talking trilogies, and because most of the time trilogies start well and then just go straight down into bullshit. Like, if you look at a chart of trilogies, it's mostly like spike on the first one, then everything goes down after that. Batman, Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, it's a pretty solid line. I mean, it's great, fantastic, and then great again.
I would say the only like genuine sort of small complaint for like Dark Knight Rises that I have is that it is awkward, even though it takes place like almost a decade later.
Yeah.
That the Joker is not addressed or mentioned at all.
Yeah, at all. Yeah, I know.
And I know Nolan had said that was like purposeful truthful, like he just didn't want to address it because he just felt
he's dead. Yeah,
yeah, it just felt bad. But just like even a throwaway line or something, because it's just
it feels so important.
It's just weird, and you can't just. That's one of those things.
It's okay. So the only reason why I think it feels weird is Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow is worked into the Dark Knight plot, and then he's worked into the Dark Knight Rises plot.
And they don't shy away from the fact that like the Dent Act is a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And they keep directly bringing up like Harvey and like his involvement, but the way they like skirt around the Joker feels really awkward.
So my only thing about that is that as comic book fans, we know that you don't just put the Joker in jail and it's done.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with the Dark Knight is it acts like he puts him in jail and it's over. Like it's done with. The thing about the Joker is he's kind of unkillable, kind of unstoppable, kind of you can't just put him away. He's just going to keep coming back. And that's why I feel most people don't. It feels weird.
It could have been it could have been as simple as just like he's like at a facility offsite.
Yeah. Right? Like something as simple as
like he's
that.
not even in Gotham anymore. He's just like under surveillance. He's going to be locked up for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Even a throwaway line just to be like, this is the reason why he's not here. Because there's always that question. It's just like, why isn't he here? Where is he right now?
Yeah.
Is he dead? Was he like executed? Like what?
Yeah, right?
Where the fuck is he?
Yeah, where the fuck did he go? And I feel like in a non-movie world, of course, you have to answer that question. But in that movie world, you don't exactly have to.
I mean, it kind of helps that it's almost a decade later, so people aren't really talking about it.
Yeah,
but it's just one of those things. Like you can tell they're just like trying to like. Let's not talk about it.
But as I was saying, how do you top The Dark Knight Rises after this?
Space.
You go to fucking space. Interstellar. It took me a while to watch Interstellar. As a big Christopher Nolan fan, I don't know why I didn't run out and see Interstellar in theaters. Same thing with Dunkirk. I did not run out and see Dunkirk in theaters. I saw them both on Blu-ray years after they came out. I don't know why I did that. They are beautiful movies.
I had a double feature when I went to go see Interstellar because I saw that and then I saw Birdman. So
wow!
So by the time I was done, I was fucking exhausted.
Yeah, holy shit!
I was exhausted.
And that's my one thing about Interstellar is it's a great movie, but I'm exhausted at the end of that movie.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I know we were just shitting on people for not understanding Inception, but Interstellar takes Christopher Nolan's like, I don't want to hand anything to the audience to the nth degree. Like, he doesn't want to hand you anything. Like, pretty much nothing in Interstellar is handed to you. And that's not a bad thing. It makes this his most artful film.
Oh, man.
I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
It almost feels like 2001: A Space Odyssey in that aspect.
And I know
I
Nolan's
hate
a huge
2001:
fan.
Space Odyssey, but I love Interstellar.
I respect 2001: A Space Odyssey
for its place
I
respect
in history.
its place in history.
And watching it even now, it's impressive how good that film looks, especially as far as its effects are concerned.
Yeah.
Because this came out before Star Wars, and it looks
right.
just as good.
Like, it still looks good.
Yeah. But it's just one of those things where, oh man, you really should have saw it in theaters. I definitely don't regret seeing it in theaters because just the amount of set pieces, like when they're on the planet with the really strong gravity and like all the waves are like skyscraper high, man. Just like huge tidal waves. Like seeing that in theaters was incredible.
That's the thing it's kind of an incredible adventure.
Yeah,
is Interstellar. It's just kind of this big sci-fi epic, you know, in a way that a lot of other sci-fi epics have not touched on.
Yeah,
you know,
I think the only disconnect that stems from it is that the material almost like doesn't completely click with Nolan, just given like the subject and the premise and like the real father-daughter story.
Yeah,
because you can kind of tell.
I mean, he wrote this with his brother.
He did, but it was in development for a long time, and it was even a project that Spielberg was going to tackle.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's wild. Like,
it was one of those things that kept going like back and forth.
And then one of my favorite things about Interstellar is how serious they took the science of this movie. I think that's why it stands above for most scientists watching it is a lot of it's really realistic.
I love that it's like simple but harrowing. Just the idea that like this blight has sort of like destroyed all of our crops save for like corn.
Yeah. You're just like
and like once that's gone, like there's only so much food, because once you get rid of grain, it's not just about not being able to eat vegetables, but what do you feed like livestock to be able to eat meat? So it's just one of those things where like it's just a slow thing where like things are just starting to wind down. And just the idea is just like, you either do this and we migrate and we repopulate and we try to like terraform, or like this generation is the last generation who will be alive on Earth.
Right? It's just like, oh, that's kind of serious. Like, you're like,
just a bit.
Just a bit.
And plus, I like the subtle world building stuff. Like when he goes to the parent like teacher conference to meet, and he gets really upset at the fact that they teach kids that like the moon landing was just propaganda.
Yeah.
Because it's a world that's become so obsessed with just like stay on Earth. We need to focus on like farmers and stuff like that. To the point where like the focus has shifted. People now have the wrong idea, and it's brought up constantly. And it's funny because it's still relevant. It's just like we used to be like pioneers.
Reach for the stars.
We used to like want to really get out there, and now we just haven't done a thing. And it's just like, oh yeah, it's a good thing things aren't like that right now.
Yeah, true. Now I'm reading right here. You were right. Steven Spielberg was attached to direct in 2006, and then that's who brought on Jonathan Nolan.
Yeah,
and Spielberg did. And then when Spielberg stepped away in 2012, Jonathan Nolan was like, I know this might sound crazy, but I'm related to a crazy good director.
Yeah.
And Christopher Nolan was like,
hey. And you can kind of tell, because like,
this is a very Spielberg
framework
movie.
Of that film, just like, that's got Spielberg all over it.
It feels like AI.
Anything with fucking daddy issues, like that's Spielberg's
anything
all
with
over
daddy.
it.
And a little girl being like a main part of the
anything
story.
about fatherhood.
Fatherhood. I think Matthew McConaughey, this was part of his renaissance.
Yeah, we had said it on like a previous episode, but like Matthew McConaughey has always been a fantastic actor, but he's been in like such shit for a good chunk of his career, with the occasional just like, that's a good use of your talents.
He did Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar.
He was in Wolf of Wall Street briefly.
Wolf of Wall Street. He was great in that HBO show, True Detectives. He really... This was his renaissance.
Yeah.
He came back, and he's still doing it.
And
I give him credit. He's still doing good movies.
Really good as the lead in this.
Yeah, he's really good. Like the crying scene where time passes in front of him. Yeah, I know it's a big ass meme, but it makes me cry. It's fucking
powerful.
It's wicked powerful.
Yeah,
and that's what I gotta give to Nolan, is that there's so many times the man makes me cry like a baby in the theater.
It's
like,
such an earned moment, because everyone it's like, obviously it's a tearjerker, but it's not just that his kids grew without him and he hasn't seen them in years. It's just like it's like he went down to a planet for like a few hours, and he came back up, but because time is relative, so much time has passed, and just for one simple mistake that caused him a delay, this much time has passed.
Right. Oh, and just the way he cries, like Matthew McConaughey, like just it's so real. Yeah. Like, like. There's some movies where they do the, like, a mother screaming when a daughter dies, and it feels very real. This feels very real, Like, it just feels like he just feels it. And even just thinking about it makes me just like, oh, Jesus Christ, Like, it's so... It's sad, like, in a very real way, Like, and that's what's great about Nolan, is he's able to capture those... really human moments in these really fantastical blockbusters.
And it's able to be like harrowing and almost scary, but also in just like a natural, grounded way. Because the idea of space in general has always been like very scary to me.
Yeah.
That's why like a movie like Gravity worked so well for me, just because space is fucking scary, man.
Anything goes wrong and you're fucked.
There's a thin sheet between us and oblivion, just right here. But just like the set piece where he goes into the singularity, because that's always the thing when you see black holes in a movie. It's like, man, what would it be like if you just fucking just
went in there, shit.
Just went in that shit. And just that scene alone is just so cool and so well done. But it's
so amazing.
like, it's so mysterious.
It's a mind-blowing movie, and it's one of those ones that I'm saying for all of these, I go back and rewatch them. I just haven't done it for Interstellar because it's exhausting. It's a lot. And you feel emotionally drained at the end. You feel like you took in the entirety of several blockbusters into your eyeballs. It's really great. Interstellar, it's one of his best. It really is. And then after that, it's like, well, how do you top fucking The Dark Knight? How do you top going into fucking space? And they're like, what if I do the best war movie not about war? And they're like, and they're like, no, you're crazy. And he's just like, what if I still make a fuckload of money?
What if I tackle like a war-torn event in history that other people have tried to tackle with very little success because this is a very confusing time to try and represent the film?
And Dunkirk is another one that took me a while to watch for some reason. But god damn, that movie is so good. And I wish I saw it in theaters just because I really cranked my speakers in my house. And this is a loud movie. If there's a movie that is loud, it is Dunkirk. I didn't even see the movie in theaters. I walked by the theater, I remember, and the whole room was shaking from what was going on. And my room at home, when I blasted these speakers, were shaking. My wife was like, you need to turn this down. They're going to think there's an actual fucking war going on over here. And I was just like, what? We have to listen to it this loud. It's how Nolan intended. And that's how I feel about it, is that Nolan has a very specific way of that he wants you to view his experiences. And he's not fucking wrong. You know?
Gotta love those loud ass movies. I remember like when I brought over Blade Runner 2049 and you hadn't had your soundbar for very long. And that motherfucker broke it in. Time for a real test.
Yeah, it really did though. But Dunkirk is not only a feat in sound design, because it really is. Mm-hmm. It really it feels visceral, it feels real, it feels like you're right there next to the bullets puncturing next to your head. You know, like they're in that boat scene and the bullets are whipping in and you can almost feel that the bullets are behind you or in front of you. Yeah. You know, like sound design wise, it's astounding.
And most of it is done practically.
Yeah.
Like the dogfight. But I mean, that's been a thing that like carries over into Nolan's career from the beginning. He very much has the philosophy of just like, do it practically unless it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure if you could literally fly a spaceship into a black hole, he
would have been like, we got to do it. Yeah, we got to fucking do it.
Yeah. But just stuff like, everyone loves the truck flip from The Dark Knight, done practically with a giant piston, and they just painted the piston out.
Isn't that wild?
And that truck flip still looks amazing.
It still looks really good.
Or stuff like the bat. Like the flying like Batwing type thing in The Dark Knight Rises. The reason it looks so good is because they literally had it on a fucking gimbal on a truck and they just painted out the truck. That's why it looks like it's really there.
It's so
Even
good.
the pit from The Dark Knight Rises is like a practical set.
And you're like,
just
what?
Like, that thing is fucking huge.
It's huge.
That's a set?
And he made it. Like, most of it is literally what he made. Like, it's wild. And Dunkirk feels like that, where you see the ships that they're walking onto, and it's real. None of it's green screen. Mm-hmm. Like, these are boys walking onto real life equipment.
I love the dogfight because it's like anti-cinematic.
Yeah.
It's not trying to like dramatize itself. It's just like a practical dogfight. You catch a bullet the wrong area and you're just like, shit, that hit my fuel tank.
And I'm dead.
But I still got to keep going. I'm almost out. And he's like, or like Tom Hardy's character is like, where he's like, almost out of fuel, but then the meter is busted, so he can't tell how much fuel he has left. It's
pure tension. It is pure. You were saying anti-cinematic, but it's really, really, really cinematic. Like Heart of Evil by Alfred Hitchcock feels very much like all these scenes.
Revise, not anti-cinematic, but not overly dramatized.
Thank you.
That's a better term.
Thank you. That's a better term, because If there's one movie I feel leans into his influences, it's Dunkirk. Because if there's other movies like Inception leans into his like love of heist movies. You know, like it definitely leans into that. But Dunkirk really leans into a lot of things he loves. You can see the Alfred Hitchcock influences with just the meter going out. It seems like such a Hitchcock shot, like just seeing the meter and then the hand comes in to tap it. Like it's straight from them.
And just the way that the film is not only structured, but also how the score plays into it. The fact that like you always hear like the ticking.
Hans Zimmer again. So if Hans Zimmer didn't fucking absolutely kill it with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then he comes back and knocks it out of the park with Interstellar, Dunkirk is incredible.
His score for Interstellar is so fucking good.
It's so weird.
With the organ.
It's so weird.
Nolan was crazy enough to be like, what if... Here, have an organ.
He said the drums are dead. He said to Zimmer here. He was like, we need to put the drums away.
Put the drums away. Here's an organ.
Man.
I've listened to the Interstellar soundtrack so fucking much. It's so goddamn good.
I used to listen to the Dark Knight soundtrack and just write things. That's how I used to do a lot of my writing.
I usually don't write without music.
Yeah, and I think the Zimmer is just up there with being able to drive. To make such a great driving soundtrack.
Yeah. And what helps is that he tries to bring in whoever's going to compose his film, which has mostly been Zimmer.
Yeah.
In as like an early collaborator.
Yes.
He says...
Except for Interstellar.
Yeah.
I was just reading that Interstellar, he gave him basically a one sheet of what the story was, but more of what like... the feeling of what was going to go on. And he basically told them that they needed a completely unique sound and they needed to get rid of all the things they had done for Inception and everything before that.
Yeah, and it shows because that score, there's just something vast and wondrous about it.
It feels so sci-fi. Like if Hans Zimmer was known for his dark and channeling and aggressive soundtracks, this one... is different.
But that's part of the reason that like Zimmer is my favorite composer is that the man has always had like a huge range. In Dunkirk, he shows it off because he's not only able to do these like dramatic war-torn moments in Zimmer, but he's also able to do the stress of the plane and that noise, the continuing noise that sounds like it's getting louder and louder and louder and louder the whole time. I forget what they call that, but it's a crazy thing where it's a sound trick where it's not the sound is not actually getting louder or the notes changing, but it's the way they set it up so that way it sounds like it's getting louder and faster the faster it goes. It is just it's just a great soundtrack for a great movie. Now, if all the other Christopher Nolan movies are stacked with actors, Dunkirk is the first one where they were like no big names except for the big role. Like, and even then, it's just what's his name as the captain? Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh. Like there's not really big name actors here other than Tom Hardy. Like this is not a movie that needed those names.
Continuing the trend of putting shit on Tom Hardy's face.
Yeah, right. Continuing it on. I think this movie soars because of that. You're not distracted by, this is Matt Damon saving the day. You're just like, these are young boys trying to escape war.
Which is funny that you say that because like it's actually kind of awkward in Interstellar when like Dr. Mann turns out to be Matt Damon.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of distracting.
Yeah, you're like, Matt fucking Damon? You're like, what
are you doing here?
What are you doing in space?
How'd you get out here?
Yeah, it's distracting.
Gotta save Matt Damon all the time. So many movies about saving Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Gotta watch The Martian.
I do.
It's super good. That. I can promise you, as someone who's just like, Ridley Scott doesn't make good movies anymore.
The Martian's good.
Martian is really good.
All right. I will have to check it out. But Dunkirk, it's one I watched this year recently. Mm-hmm. And if there wasn't 1917 this past year, I would say Dunkirk is one of the best modern war movies, hands down.
And it still can be.
It still is.
Because they tackle very different things.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we've already done a lot of talk of Dunkirk in our war episodes, so we won't go too much more into Dunkirk. But it is it is an astounding movie. And I would say that's pretty much how I feel about watching any Christopher Nolan film. I'm astounded. He makes me gasp at times, and he makes me feel the movie magic, and that's most important, is that you get that, I love a good grounded film. I love a good, down to earth, two people talking type of film. Give me a Marriage Story any type of day. But god damn, is it nice to see somebody do fantastical / sci-fi things to a T.
Yeah, and have it be so grandiose and so big, but never gratuitous.
Yes,
just so focused,
and I think that's what I think stands out, is that he's an extremely focused director, and so well done. I think that's pretty much where we're going to leave it.
We can't really talk about Tenet because it's not out yet, and we kind of just covered what they showed in the trailers.
Yeah, it looks good.
I'm looking forward to it. I saw the IMAX
I do want to
prologue.
see it in theaters. I don't want to see it at home. I want to see it in theaters.
I mean, I keep telling you, once things finally calm down, hopefully, that you actually incentivizes you to go to the theaters more.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I'm going to the theaters.
You were doing pretty well before all this hit.
Yeah.
But there was a period
where I just wasn't going to
Frank,
theaters.
You're just not watching movies.
Yeah. I was seeing movies at home. I just wasn't seeing them in theaters. And I was turning around right before COVID came around. And then, of course, COVID came and I can't go fucking see my movies. And that's the reason why Tenet keeps pushing back, because no one wants you to see it in theaters.
Yeah,
and I don't blame them.
Right now it's due for August. Internationally.
Well, that's what cracks me up, is that all internationally they get Tenet,
they're having,
but we fucked up here in America, so we have to wait until September, October.
Or even if it does release out here, I ain't fucking going. Until it's absolutely safe. I ain't going anywhere.
I ain't going. Especially because tons of people will go see Tenet. But I'm really excited for the movie. First off, I think it's a good thing I know Nolan was being accused of being slightly racist because he's never had a black lead. I think that's what's important about Tenet, is finally it's Nolan being like, look, I'm not racist. I'm just British. He's just like, he's just like, whoa. I only know white people because I'm British. He's like, don't worry. No, that's very assuming. I'm just joking. But yes, I think there's a main reason for that. And they say the same thing for, if there's a criticism I can give Nolan, is that sometimes his women characters are not extremely well written.
Yeah.
He does a good job of making them not 2D, he adds some 3D elements.
They're not flat. And
they're not flat.
They're also not stereotypes.
But it's like he does hold up these male protagonists far more than he does female protagonists in any way. It's like it even shows with Anne Hathaway in both Interstellar and Dark Knight Rises. She doesn't get the time she deserves.
I like her as her function as Selena in Dark Knight Rises more than I do as her character in Interstellar.
Yeah.
That's the one where it feels sort of clumsily executed.
Yeah.
And even stuff I don't mind Rachel Dawes as a character, but her death in The Dark Knight is not why I'm sad.
Yeah, exactly. You're not
shocking
like, oh no,
because
you
they
killed
actually,
Rachel Dawes.
It's shocking because they actually went there
killed
and killed the love interest. To serve a
really
point.
show you.
But as far as being sad about Rachel's death,
yeah, I feel that, and
that
is Nolan's fault.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a much worse movie, but I was fucking sad when Gwen died.
When Gwen died, yeah,
because despite the problems with those two movies, I loved her as Gwen and her and Andrew Garfield's chemistry. That hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel that. But we're going to get caught on another tangent. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for tuning in into another deep dive into the works of Christopher Nolan. We hope to bring you more of these. Please message us who you want to cover the works of next. We're just going to go down some of our favorite filmmakers anyways with this series. But if you have somebody special that you're like, guys, I know this will be an awesome episode, please tweet at us. My username is YepFrank.
Mine is Mod Karaika.
And we also have Facebook pages. Galaxy of Geek is the site we post this podcast on. We also got Facebook pages for that. That's where we post the memes and the good news and everything. That's where it all is. And basically, listen to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Also,
Please.
if you haven't seen any of these movies, watch every single one.
Yes, absolutely. Watch every single one. Subscribe, and then watch every single one of these movies. That's my call to action at the end of the podcast. How about that?
That's your homework.
That's my homework. But for your homework, for the audience. But thank you guys for listening in. I hope you guys have a great week.
See you next time.